from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very pleased joining me, Tom Altman. Tom, thank you very much for being with me here today on the show. The way I love to do it, I like to keep it to my guests to introduce themselves. So tell us a little bit more about you, your journey, and what you're currently up to, and then we can take it from there.
Well, thanks, Mehmet. Yeah, currently a fractional CTO with a company called Altus. Think of us as a company that can help you, much like a law firm might help you. We have disciplines in technology, HR, finance, but my journey has been kind of fun. I always say I was a radio DJ turned web developer. I wasn't that great at web development, so they made me into a manager, Mehmet, and then kind of worked my way through some consulting firms and media companies and landed about 15 years ago into e-commerce and just really enjoyed that world as it was coming up, kind of getting bigger and better. And so that kind of led me into fractional work, which has been just a really great time helping companies help themselves. I like to say I pour digital concrete, meaning I just want to help companies get their technology foundation solid. And that's never been more important than it is today with kind of all this AI tidal wave coming in 2025 for us, Mehmet.
Wow. What a journey, Tom. So I'm always fascinated by hearing these stories, and thank you for sharing that with us here today. So, any reason why did you choose, technology, rather than anything else? And especially you come from as you said, like a radio DJ background. So, what attracted you to the tech, Tom?
Yeah, I think I was ignoring that part of my life the whole time, Mehmet. I was always involved, radio is a very technical business, maybe more than people realize. I came up in radio when the automation was coming into play. So when I first started, we were playing either CDs or kind of carts, they call them, which are like an 8-track tape. And so as that started to go digital, then pretty soon everything was being run on a computer. So things were scheduled. Things were then, of course, automated. This is in the late 90s, early 2000s. And you started seeing this automation come into play where for some overnight shifts, I'd come in and record, maybe a month's worth of content, which then just get automatically run at night. And so, I think I was just always around technology. I was always helping out. And I think the only one that was surprised, Mehmet, when I said, I'm going to leave radio and go to technology, I think I was the only one surprised. Everyone was like, yeah, that's what you should have been doing the whole time. So I think it was just one of those things where that's what I was kind of doing as hobbies, and it just made sense.
Fantastic. And nice to hear all these stories. So now let's go, and talk about technology, right? One of the reasons, Tom, why I wanted to start this show actually, and I call it the CTO show for a reason, of course, is because I always believe technology should be driving, the business, right? And driving in a way also bridging the business needs with through technology and through, all these fantastic things that we can do. So in your opinion, what are the key elements to successfully align technology to a company strategy and, let's say, like the long-term vision and mission, as we call them?
Yeah, I love that question because I think it's forgotten so many times. I think, I was at a client here recently and we were joking about the audio visual system in the conference room, and the quote was, we have to make this system CEO proof, right? And it was funny, right? And everyone laughed. But at the same time, I think that's one of the little problems we see with strategy of companies, and then not always being aligned with the technology department or the team. And I think that what we're going to see here, especially in 2025, if the company's strategy and technology are not aligned, that's going to be worse than it's ever been. 2025, in my opinion, Mehmet, is the year to get your technological house in order, because 2026 is when the AI agents and kind of agentic is kind of a word that's used there. Um, the agentic systems are going to start to really get serious. And if you don't have your systems diagrammed and your processes documented, you're going to find yourself in a serious technology debt in 2026. So I think this is the best time we've ever seen to get your company strategy and your company technology aligned. Because let's face it, what are you doing at your company that's not technology? There's almost nothing. Everything has something to do with technology. And if you don't have that kind of documented, written down, and kind of posted on the wall for everyone to read, I think it's going to be a problem for some of these companies. Now, whether it'll cause them to be, a non-recoverable problem, we don't know that yet. But I do know that the further ahead we can get with system documentation and processes, the better off things are going to be for those companies.
Love this. Now you brought me early to something which is very interesting. So everyone is talking, Tom, and I've been talking about agents, AI agents, since the beginning of 2023. And I'm repeating this because I was, lucky, I would say, to get to know about these agents through some posts on X or Twitter, as people
Sure.
still call it. And I started to see first attempt with the baby AGI and Auto GPT and these things. So you mentioned something about now how this aligns with the business strategy. So, and I was reading an article just a couple of hours back. So how do you think, Tom, really companies should be prepared? Like, is it only about adopting, saying, hey, we're gonna implement AI, or like they need to go and do kind of a full assessment? Like, do they have the data that they want to build on top of that? Like, where should they start? Because agents are coming, as you said, and you are saying that 2026 will be the year where the agents will pick up. So what organizations should be doing currently so they don't get missed by the time
Right.
2026 comes, and we're gonna have this as a norm, I would say.
Yeah, great question. I like to start at the systems documentation level. Let's just make sure we write down all the systems that we have, because that's kind of the backbone of the technological roadmap. So that's usually not too bad. I mean, sit in a room, hour or two, you can get all that kind of knocked out. The second piece is the hard part, right? It's the processes. I like to look at the how many departments, how many people touch each one of those technologies. And then the hard part comes in the SOPs, right? Standard operating procedures. How are we using this stuff? Because if it's kind of like, I remember vividly back in my elementary school time, and it was kind of a fun thing that the teachers did. They said, write down how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? And so then when we came back later, it was like, all right, now give your directions to make a peanut butter jelly sandwich to your friend, and you take your friends. And then you could only do exactly what was written down, and you were trying to assemble a sandwich. And of course, people were saying things like, put the peanut butter on the bread, right? And then, like, it didn't say open the jar. It didn't say get a knife. It didn't say spread it out over the bread evenly. So I think these are the kind of SOPs that we're missing in our businesses, because people just have that knowledge in their head. And if you think about what an agent might be able to do, it's kind of that analogy of making the peanut butter sandwich for us, right? There's going to be a lot of powerful tools that can come in and read your processes and say, "Oh, I can do that for you," or have a couple questions for you and then be able to execute. And I think if we think of that in the way that we run our business, it's a very important piece, right? I think it's very similar to like exit planning or preparing to sell a business. This is the same structure and processes that we need to go through to say, am I ready to like allow automation to come to me? Because I think so many times we just make assumptions about what happens. And I think when I think of that SOP and process written concepts, it's very popular in the investment banking world. And this is more for security reasons that they do this, but you have to take a 2 week PTO sometime during the year, and they turn you off. You cannot have access. No one can call you. And the processes and the information that you've written down, someone else has to take it and see if they can manage it. I mean, they do that to make sure that there's not fraud happening, but they also do that to make sure that they have everything documented and written in such a way that if you were happen to get hit by a bus, that would be something that someone could pick up and the company could go on. And I think that's kind of the mentality that we need to be taking as we start to look at these things. I think there's so many times I've come into clients and they're just not prepared. I mean, one person has the keys to everything. One person is the linchpin to so many things. And I think we have to get away from that mentality and make sure that these documents exist, especially when we start to look at, all the effects that cybersecurity breaches and these things can have on us. I mean, and those are just the extreme natures. We're just not talking about when Mehmet needs to take a little holiday and wants to just go have some fun and not get called while he's away, right? I mean, these are the things I think that we kind of bury them and we don't always just really take them seriously.
Right. Now let's shift, the discussion to, the fractional part. Like,
Yeah.
last year I spoke a lot with fractional CTOs and even fractional CMOs, fractional
Mhm.
CROs. So if we want to just, for the folks like who maybe are not familiar, so what is exactly the role of a fractional CTO in an organization, Tom? Like usually, if you want to describe like your day to day tasks with these, or like let's say, on the high level, what do you do with the companies that you offer your fractional services to?
Yeah, I usually start by saying fractional executives are part-time C-suite members, right? And when I've talked to people that have run businesses and explained this theory to them, people that have maybe retired now, and they said, "Wow, that would have been something that was very helpful to me," because as we all know, we need expertise and we need experience to help us. And what we see here is that fractional executive brings in their prior experience with you, and they can just help you kind of laser focus some of these things in. So what we see is kind of 2 to 3 scenarios. One scenario can be um, someone leaves unexpectedly and they're not really prepared. The people that they have, like maybe in the second tier and third tier roles, are good people. They're just not quite ready to be the leader yet. So what we see there is what we call interim. So you might just come in, kind of get the feel of everything, and kind of just help maintain the normal things, the day to day work, and kind of help direct some of these people that are really good employees, but maybe just not ready to take over the full piece of that. Usually that's a shorter term, contract or an engagement. And it could be anywhere from a few months to a year. And sometimes you're just going to decide, do they need a full-time CTO, or can this work for them long term, or can we help them hire someone? So I think that's one scenario. I think another scenario is a bigger project or an initiative. Come in and just help people get a project done or get something done. We see that a lot in software implementation. ERP is a great example. I always say, if you ask the salesperson of this software that you're buying if this will work for them, very rarely do you hear a salesperson say, "We're not for you." And they're not lying. I think the answer is usually, yes, we can do that, and the work that it takes. And that kind of comes back to reflect on the stuff that needs to get done before a software gets implemented. Is, do you know how you use things? Do you know how it works for you? These are the processes that we have to understand. And when we present those to the software companies, they can understand how your business works. So those are those two pieces. And then a lot of times we'll come in and it could just be they know they need a little help from a CTO, but they know they don't want to be paying for a full-time CTO type salary. And that's where we can just help, where, maybe we give them a retainer style engagement, which ends up being 4-8 hours a week, and just help them make it just keep going on, and then that gives them more leverage and money to use in other ways. So that's kind of the three basic ways that we see it. I think fractional CFOing has been going on for probably 7 to 10 years, but now you're really seeing these other disciplines kind of ramp up. And what I've seen from a lot of companies is a really good way for them to really kind of amp up a team, and then decide whether, especially get them through a small growth spurt. These are the times when you need that expertise, but you just don't need the burden on the budget, right?
Right. And I think it fits also startups, if I'm not mistaken, also, Tom, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah,
I mean, that's the problem, right? You get in this knowledge deficit when you're in a startup and you have a really amped up CEO that knows what they want to do, but there's so many, there's just so much to it now. And I think the other one we're seeing a lot more too recently is cyber attacks and cybersecurity. You can't, I mean, there's technology has changed so much, even in just the kind of 30 years that I've been around it, right? I mean, it's just used to be you were either a hardware person or you were a web software person or you were a not web software person. And now there's just so much intrusion testing, all these things that you just have to know. And I mean, these people study for years and years just to understand just a Cisco router or a Cisco switch system, right? I mean, so you have to be, there's just so many levels and layers that you really almost cannot. It's so expensive unless you're an enterprise level company to have the kind of knowledge you need. And unfortunately, this is where you see some of these breaches happen is, the IT person that they've got is a smart person. They're just simply overtaxed and they either forget or don't know some of the things that they need to do. And, and it ends in disaster for them sometimes.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy you're bringing this, Tom, because some people, they still underestimate, the effect of these cyber incidents on the business. And I tell people sometimes your business can be wiped out if you don't, you know, give them attention. So it's good you're mentioning this. Now, from a fractional, executive perspective, Tom, um, so you are on a retainer based model, obviously, and sometimes you need to help the CEO, mainly in adapting, as we said, like some strategies. But when it comes to something that involve innovation, so because you're not there all the time, and innovation needs like kind of a follow up, you know regularly.
Yeah.
So, and we are living also in a world where everything becomes like remote first, and people usually don't come together to office. So, is this a challenge? Like, is there something, as a fractional, you need to do it differently so you can make sure that still, innovation happens and still people understand the high level strategy that this company is trying to do? So, if you can walk us through this part, Tom, that would be really helpful.
I think it's the piece that is probably the most important. I think is just the people part of it. Anytime there's change, there's anxiety and nervousness, and I think what I try to do immediately is just really get to know the people that are on the team, get to know them, get to know the details about them, because I think once you can kind of get people to relax, let their guard down, because the knee jerk reaction is always, I'm getting let go, I'm getting fired, I'm going to get, removed from my position. And the irony of this whole thing is when you come in, it's things about technology in general. I know a lot about these things, but I don't know anything about their company and the way they do it. And everything is really a unique situation. So I think if you can find a way to get everyone kind of calm down and saying, this is a good thing, I'm here to help. I want to make sure that this company succeeds, hits the goals, and I'm going to remove roadblocks, like any good manager should do. So I think that the first thing to kind of build trust, build in that piece of it. And when you can do that, I think that's when things kind of the gears get greased and things start to move along, and listen to people too. I think so many times, I think people have ideas, they've been kind of suppressed with those because they just get caught up in the day to day. And I think that's what happens at times where people just they know things. I mean, these people have been at these companies for many years and have so much tribal knowledge. There's no possible way that I can know these things without them. So I think finding a way to really connect with people, let them know you're here to help them, let them know you're not here to take their job, let them know it's us unifying and serving as that conduit maybe to the leadership team. When that can happen, you can really see high success happen, and that usually takes a little bit of time. But for me, I don't get too worried about the remoteness. I think it's always good if you can meet in person at some point. That's just kind of one of those things that kind of helps. I think it's just human nature, but I don't think it's a necessity. And I think a lot can be done. Just taking a couple minutes at the beginning of meetings to kind of just be normal, be human. Talk to people, get to know them a little bit. I think that's helpful too.
Do you think, although like all of us, we suffered, do you think COVID helped us to accept this factor?
It seems like it, doesn't it? I think between COVID kind of forcing our hand in these things, and I think eventually this, the VR thing will also help. I mean, I don't know if you've used any of the VR things, Mehmet, but it's so interesting how quickly that you can think, my gosh, I'm holding a lightsaber and I kind of believe I kind of believe it, right? And I think if we can get maybe one more level of, HD, and if you and I were sitting here and we had VR glasses on and we were sitting across the table, boy, it would almost feel like we were sitting there together. I think as bandwidths increase and the quality of these connections increase, I think the statistic is somewhere around the 95% range of our brain believing what we're seeing when it comes to that visual aspect of things. And I think that's going to help as well. I mean, it is kind of funny. I mean, you and I are having a great conversation. We're enjoying ourselves, and we don't need to be right next to each other to have this conversation. And it's good, and I think with the world becoming smaller as technology grows, I mean, there's just so many interesting people and so many interesting ideas from people all over the place. I would hope that we can tap into these things. And I think that's the thing that's so interesting, I think, about this remoteness of things.
But why do you think still some in tech, some managers still insist on, being in the office and.
I mean, in technology, I think because, at one point in time, people had to go touch those servers and touch some of these things, that it kind of becomes this kind of thing that they get used to. I know I've had some colleagues before that really wanted to push we got to get to see them. We got to get this. I'm like, the problem with that is the person comes in the morning, they sit down at their desk, you wave to them when they walk by your office door. Then when you get up and go to another meeting that they're not involved in, you wave at them again, and pretty soon everyone's going home, and you see them one time filling up their water bottle. And I mean, I don't understand why people think that is authentic interpersonal communication. I don't know. It's interesting. I think it's just going to take time. The one thing that I do think it exposes, Mehmet, is, bad managers are even worse when they're remote.
Oh,
When you're a bad manager, but yet you can shake hands with somebody, that does not make you a better manager when you're remote, because now people don't know anything about what their expectations are. And I think it exposes bad managers even worse. And I think that's what some people are a little scared of. I think there's been a lack. I mean, I know that over the time that I've had maybe one job where I got some real management training that was authentic. And other than that, you kind of learn it as you go, and you do what other people did to you, or you try not to do the things that other people did to you as when you were being managed. I think that's where the trouble hits with some of this stuff. Is I think people don't know how to manage people and give them expectations and hold them accountable.
right. So I want to go back to the tech side of the business, Tom. So we discussed AI and the AI agents, and this landscape. So other than AI, which is all obviously the number one
Sure.
trend, and the number one imperative, I would say, that should be on all of us currently. So what else are you seeing, especially because, and I think, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, so you cover different types of clients, so you don't focus on one specific vertical. So but you must be seeing something common other than AI, which, seeing maybe an adoption from tech perspective, or maybe you think it's the next big thing after AI, of course, that is coming. So what are like some of the trends you're seeing currently?
Well, what I've been hearing from progressive leaders at companies is they know, and we've heard this for a number of years. I mean, for example, one client that I have, they have about 6 people in their finance department, and they know that they can do that job with maybe 4 or less, but they also know they've got some team members that are aging out. So, I mean, that's one of the things that I see there. And I think AI gets this broad brush kind of painted on everything. But I think what I'm seeing a lot of people are wanting to do is really dig down and automate some of these jobs, because they know that a lot of the things that people do on a day-to-day basis is rather mundane and boring, and really could be automated. So we're seeing that. And I think in relation to that, I think we're really seeing the cybersecurity piece, and it's not exciting and fun. It's actually very scary. But I think what I've noticed, or trying to communicate with the people that I work with, is that we've been kind of lackadaisical in the way that we've organized our data and information, and it's really protected in our big share drives and in our cloud files by obscurity, right? It's really hard to find the information, but it's sometimes mislabeled. I think what a big another thing that I really encourage my clients to do is really get their arms around the data, where it's stored, and the governance that it's with, because there's a lot of data that can be exposed and stolen and exploited, and those are the things we want to try to avoid when it comes to it. I mean, I think outside of that, I mean, just, it's all AI all the time, Matt. It's hard to get around it. I mean, I think things are going to change so much. I think of, we used to build our own shopping carts back in 2000. You couldn't go buy one; you just built one, right? And
Right.
and when we think about that, and then you think about influencers and social media, I mean, those didn't exist yet in 2000. I think that's the thing that people just don't. It's hard to get your mind wrapped around, but there's just going to be so many more opportunities of words and jabs and things that we can't even explain yet, because they don't exist yet. And you can see that over the time. I mean, it's, as we move from industrial to a technological nations, things change, and there's just so many things that exist. And so when you start to think that way, I think things will become very interesting. I think the way that companies operate will become interesting. The other thing I see is, I think we're just becoming more of, call it gig nations, gigify things. I mean, I think we're going to become our own bosses more. I mean, everyone's going to kind of work for each other. You're going to call me when you need a certain thing that I'm just really good at, and vice versa. I think that we're going to see just a lot more of that kind of thing, and I think hopefully society, insurance, all these kind of things kind of follow along with it, because that's the hard part now for a lot of people that want to kind of be their own boss. Is it's really, there's a lot of elements that we depended on with employers, right? PTO and
Right.
benefits and things like that. And I think hopefully we'll see some innovations there as well, so that kind of people can do their thing. I mean, we're not put on this earth to just walk around and work. I mean, you want to experience the world and people and things like that. And that's what I love about shows like this. You just get to talk to new people. I mean, we probably never would have ran into each other if it would have been for an opportunity to be together. And I just love meeting people. It's just so interesting to hear people's take on things.
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing this, Tom, because, you mentioned many things which I also believe in. So the first one is, you know, yeah, so we're gonna becoming more entrepreneurial by default, I would say, more than before. So because everyone will figure out, oh, like I can do everything by myself. So, I can offer this service, and the gig economy help us in doing also this as well. The second thing, yeah, like regarding also keeping this personal touch and meeting new people. This is, people ask me why you still do it, like, and I say, man, this is, you don't put a price tag to the fact that you keep meeting new people, because every time I have a guest on the show, like say new connection, and then we keep it for a long time. Of course, like we don't speak maybe often because of the time difference, because I'm in Dubai, majority
Right.
of my guests are in the US. But guess what? It happened many times. I remember, for example, Tom is specialized in fractional, CTO work. And I get someone, I don't know, someone else looking for something. So I refer him to Tom, and vice versa. And this whole thing, it's priceless. I tell people, look, guys, it's priceless. Like having these real conversation with real people and keeping the relations going, it's something really priceless. So, and this is why I like to keep doing this, Tom. And thank you for bringing this in. You wanted to say something.
Well, it's just so interesting, right? I mean, you look at a Dubai, which is an amazing place, right? But then, I'm sure that there's some even more interesting places, within, so many 100 kilometers, miles from Dubai. But it's almost impossible to live there today because it's so hard to get resources there. But you look at these drone technologies that come, and to be delivering drones, and then we have a Starlink, which pretty much allows us to get internet anywhere we are. And I mean, honestly, between those two things, if you can get supplies and you can be connected to the outside world, how amazing is it? I mean, I love to watch these video shows and short video things of people that are building off a grid, or they're living on this area. And before, like, it was just so hard, right? I mean, how do you get enough just supplies to live, right? But now, like, with these drone capabilities, I mean, in the United States, Alaska is a very remote area, but they drop things in from planes, and you can imagine that they could do the same thing with a drone delivery. And how interesting is that? I mean, it really, really does continue to connect the world, and we start to learn more things about areas that have not had people in them for so long, and it's just it's amazing and fascinating to me how small the world can become. You can watch a video about someone in any part of the world now almost, and just feel so connected with them, and it's just such a beautiful medium that it's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely, 100%. Uh, some people ask, and I get asked the same question, so I ask it to people as well. How 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 do you keep with all? You mentioned a lot of things like a few moments ago. How do you keep yourself updated and educated on everything? And really, we are living in a such time where, like the other day, I slept and I woke up and I found out, like, Google has released, I don't know how many new things, and Nvidia released the new mini computer, and I said, oh my god, like, what a exciting time to be alive. So, but as technologists, let's put it this way, tell me your story. Like, how do you keep yourself up to date, and making sure that you're ready to answer everything about all what's new.
Yeah, I think it's twofold, right? I think you got to find that thing you're going to focus on and really kind of dig in and learn that. And then I use shows, I don't know if you've heard of the Daily AI show, like for one example, and they kind of summarize. I mean, they have a daily show. I do not catch that every day, but I do check out their like summaries, right? And I think that's what you kind of have to do. You kind of have to be a generalist in many things and listen to some of these updates, and then you have to be a specialist. And I think tools like Google LM is Notebook LM is a great example of ways to kind of to put kind of some things into pockets, and you just have to kind of I think you have to accept the fact that you're not going to know everything, and that kind of blends into what we've been talking about a little bit too, right? Now I need to know that Mehmet is my guy when I need to know more things about X, Y, or Z, and Tom's the guy for this. We just can't be experts in it all anymore, and I think we just have to succumb to that fact, and maybe we use AI to kind of get overarching knowledge, but you just can't know it all. It just gets segmented and segmented over and over again, and I think the only thing that will happen is I think you'll end up pulling all your hair out if that's what you're trying to do to learn it all. I think we get caught up in learning all these things, and I think sometimes we have to forget that we just need to enjoy life more too. So.
Absolutely, yeah. For me, I do the same thing. The notebook LM is next level. I tried it a couple of times. Mind blown.
It is
The way
crazy.
it's
And I
crazy. The
haven't gotten
way
back to it lately, but now it's my understanding that you can talk to it. And I haven't tried that feature, but now not only does it have the podcast that it creates for your information, but now you can ask it questions and it'll respond, which I know was in some of their earlier demos. But how amazing for learning is that going to be? Customizable learning for people. I mean, that is the way I think we'll just start to see more channels of people maybe just providing the knowledge base, and now you can put that into your LM, your notebook LM, and learn it your way. It's just a whole entire different way to think. I was talking just recently to some family members who are in education, and I said, please tell me you're keeping up with this. This is so amazing for kids, because we all know that kids don't learn the same way, and they certainly don't like the same subject matter. So if one
right,
person can learn physics based on basketball and one person can learn physics based on Pokemon, how amazing is that? I mean, so now you can really just help them. I mean, let's tailor the education to them and the things that they like, instead of, in the United States, it was Bill and Jane, do this. And it was so boring, right? I mean, it was so generic. And now, like, it can just become part of you. And I don't know, the educational system is probably in trouble. And hopefully we can change it so that, I know, like, Norway is a very experiential learning place for people. Like, I know that's part of their educational system. So is Japan. I mean, I see these educational systems in Japan, and the kids are making the food, they're cleaning the place. How impressive is that, right? Like, and it's not about the test scores. it's about these children and their experiences and how they learn, and let's teach them logic. Let's teach them to think. These are the things that are hard to replicate for some of these for the AIs, in my opinion. And it's going to give us this, culture. I mean, I think you think of Russia, and they learn so much culture, and they learn about philosophy, and there's so many different places that teach so much interesting things. I think I know, at least in the United States, we found our way away from that, and hopefully this will be somewhat of a renaissance for that kind of thing.
I hope too, and I think it's across the, not only in the US. So we have these problems everywhere, and this is why I'm excited, about the effect of AI in education, and how we can, as you said, I like your term, like it's kind of renaissance
Yeah.
in education. So 100%. Um, Tom, before we wrap up, a lot of people, they want to be in tech, and they want to follow the same path, maybe as you. So for folks who are still new, you know, and in their baby steps, I would say. So, what kind of advice you can give them?
Yeah, I would say, you know, corporate world is an interesting place, and I think it's a great place for people to start, get a taste of so many things. But I think you just got to be so careful anymore. I'm in the United States, they like to label everything, right? So I'm part of what they call Generation X, and we're also part of the people that are getting pushed out of corporate more than anybody else. I mean, you used to go to work for a company a long time ago, and you kind of grew up there, you learned there, and then you retired from there. And I think that's something that's changing. And I think in this immediate results world that we live in, you just have to remember that some of this stuff is pretty short lived. And so I would just say, think about yourself, learn about what you can do, learn the things build yourself a system so that you can kind of be ready to change gears as needed. Every one of us has a wealth of knowledge and information that we know, and you have to trust that you're really you're a smart person. Everyone's a very smart person, and the things that they know can help benefit you in many other places. So just don't be afraid to test around and experiment, and just be your own advocate at times, because I think corporate has a way of grinding us down. I know that's the way it was when I was there, and it's so much. There's just so much more to life than just that job and working. I mean, these conversations that we're having, it's fun. It's nice to talk to you and just kind of iron sharpens iron in that way, right? Like we get to learn from each other, we get to talk, and how interesting is that? I mean, I think just knowing that you're a good person and that you know things and that there's plenty of things that you can learn and do. I think people just get beat down so much sometimes. And if you're not having an enjoyable time with the people you work with and the place you work with, there is a place for you that will be better.
Absolutely. I like this, Tom. So finally, as we are wrapping up, Tom, where people can get in touch and, connect with you.
Yeah, I think the easiest place is probably just look up Tom Altman on LinkedIn. I'm there. I like to interact there. It's a great place to connect anymore. And yeah, find me there and please connect, and let's have a virtual coffee or something.
Great. So for the folks, you don't need to go search. I will make your life easy. So I'll put the link in the show notes if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform. And for the folks who are watching this, so you'll find it in the description on YouTube. Tom, I really enjoyed the discussions, and this is why I like keep doing this podcast, because I bring authentic people like yourself who not only share their experiences, but also you showed us really how things are getting really exciting, and the point of view that you bring, and with your experience, of course, this is priceless. I always call it's priceless, right? So you cannot put a price tag next to it. So thank you very much for sharing your insights with us today. And this is for the audience. If you just discovered this podcast thank you for passing by. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did so, give us a thumb up, share it with your friends and colleagues, and come back again. And if you are one of the people who are loyal to us, thank you for keep listening and watching and keep recommending us. Thank you very much for also, the questions and the suggestions you keep sending. And as I say always, thank you for tuning in. We'll meet again very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.